Okay, everybody. Hello and welcome to the FAYZAN X fizzy podcast show. And this is the first episode, hopefully the first of many. And I'm sure my guest today, who you'll all come to know and hopefully love as well, will definitely be keeping me on track to do so. So obviously, I've put a brief intro and I've done a little bit of promotion about this podcast and what it's about. But essentially, it is just about meeting, interviewing, chatting to interesting people, exploring amazing, groundbreaking, or just even ordinary, to be fair, ideas. I'm not going to hype this up. Um, Lots of different things are going to be coming up, and I'm sure you'll be able to enjoy and take some value from it as we go along this journey. So thank you very much for tuning in. Now, I want to introduce my guest today, who's a very a man with many stories, very interesting man, Zulfi. It's Zulfaqar Faraz, and now I'm gonna, to be honest with you, I'm gonna open this up. Zulfi, you know what my intentions are with this podcast. You know who I'm trying to reach and what sort of stuff I'm gonna be talking about and discussing on here. But it is a very open, an open show where you can just share whatever you think is relevant and contextual. But I'm gonna give you my introduction anyway. Let the people know what I know of you and what you're about. I'm sure you'll surprise us anyway. So, um, Zulfi is actually my coach and mentor in developing and starting this podcast. Um, he's somebody who's developed his own successful podcast called the Minotaur Mastery podcast, which is currently ranking pretty well. I'm sure you'll go into that for us, Zulfi, and tell us all about what that is and what it's about. Um, we've known each other for a little while, and we've known each other in a few different contexts, but this is the beginning of my podcast journey, and it's something that I'm grateful to say that you kind of got me on board with, and something that we're all going to enjoy. So yeah, I'm gonna open it up for you now, Zulfi, and I'd like you to tell us a little bit about you to start with, just so that people know who you are and what you're about, and then we can get into the meat of the conversation. So take it away.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me on, especially being your first guest. So that's a nice honor and privilege. So yeah, my name is Zulfaqar, born and raised here in the UK. Typical UK upbringing, especially from an Asian side, where the only important things is religion and education. So typical story. Went to school, did well at school. The clown, SWAT, as you call them, the A B student. Did well in high school, university, got a law degree, and became a lawyer. Qualified as a lawyer, but it was one of those things which I did because I thought I had to become a professional. I thought I had to get a degree and, the usual spiel that we all hear every day. So it wasn't something that I wanted to do. It wasn't something I aspired to be. It was just I needed to be a professional. And because I didn't like science, that took a lot of industries out of the equation. So the only professional industry without science that felt important was law. So I became a lawyer, and worked my way up the corporate ladder, worked the rubbish jobs all the way up, and then I eventually became my own. I started off as becoming a freelance consultant. So I used to work for various different law firms by myself. And then eventually I did open up my own law firm. But by this time, it's been so many years in the industry, which I hated every single moment of. So burnout happened and I just couldn't be asked with it anymore. So gave up the whole legal field. And since then, I've experimented with so many different business models, whether it's online business, even offline businesses, you name it, I've tried it. And I suppose the most important thing was lifestyle. And what I hated about the legal field and the career as a lawyer was the lack of lifestyle. It was the same day-to-day grind, waking up at a time I didn't want to really wake up at, sitting in awful traffic, doing a job I hated, and then coming home in traffic, and then not having time to do anything. So I made this shift where I wanted to focus on lifestyle more than career and anything else. So these days, with the entrepreneur world, especially online, they tell you, oh, if you want a lifestyle, you got to become an entrepreneur, you've got to start your own business, which is something that I did. But what I found was when you do that, you have even less time for doing what you want to do. So, people think that, you're going to start a business, you're going to do this and you're going to have all of this free time. It's not like that. It's the absolute opposite. You're going to be spending more hours, more time working. The only difference that you really have is you can choose the hours that you work, which again, that just come at an expense. It's not total freedom because, one of the biggest things that people have is why they want to leave the corporate world in the 9 to 5 is because they don't want to have a boss. They don't want to be told what to do, etc. Well, when you start a business, what you're going to find very quickly is that you don't have one boss anymore. You've got many different bosses. They're just called clients now. And you've got to service those clients. So you've got to be there for your clients. So, you might be thinking that you've got all of this freedom. Well, no, because if you have demanding clients, then you've got to take the time out to make sure those clients are happy. So in a nutshell, that's me. So recently, as you know, I've been trialing out this coaching and helping people, develop self-esteem, confidence and communication skills by starting a podcast. And the other thing that I'm working on is acquisition. So I have a business partner in America, which I'm sure we'll talk about, which happened as a result of the podcast, where we're going to be helping people buy businesses to build wealth. And the reason why I want to concentrate on self-esteem and confidence and communication is because these three things were what I was lacking for a long part. And I would say these three things, if you have these three things, you can make anything work. So, a lot of people, they want to jump straight into business, but they don't have the self-esteem, they don't have the confidence, and they don't have the communication skills. It becomes an uphill battle. And not just in a business context, even in a private personal context, if you don't have self-esteem, if you don't have confidence, if you don't know how to communicate, you're going to struggle with all aspects of your life, whether it's your relationships, whether it's, socializing generally. So it's not just in business. So what I want to focus on is helping people build these things using a podcast, because a podcast is a powerful way to do that, to build all of those three things. And then you can use that as a platform to then change your life in whatever field, whether it's your personal life, whether it's your business or entrepreneurial life, or even in your career. Like podcasts can be used for career. But in a nutshell, I'm now trying to focus on lifestyle over income and career, because I want to do more things which are important to me, which is praying, spending time with family, reading books, etc. And obviously going to the gym and exercising as well. And as well as obviously, you have to work, you have to make money. But yeah, that's the brief overview.
Okay, thank you for giving us some good context there, and talking about obviously your journey, and not only your journey thus far, but also what the future is looking like for you. So I guess it would be safe to say, in terms of to summarize, that you have basically, born and raised here in the UK, and you've followed the script. Basically, you followed the script. You did everything that was set out, everything that was expected of you, and you are kind of hoping that as a result of following that you kind of find the pot at the end of the rainbow as such. But you've got to the end of, or at least you've got quite far along this rainbow to find that there's actually no pot there as such, or it's a pot that you're not very enthusiastic about, and obviously you've looked to take your journey further, and that's a journey that's sort of looking more into a more holistic, balanced quality of life and living, not just living to work, but having a great balance. And again, I'm sure we'll obviously go into a lot of these things in terms of career and that sort of thing, but I think that is a very important overarching theme of what's coming up here, because I think that it'd be safe to say that you're not the only one that's going through something like this, or that's gone through a journey like this, and it's something that we're seeing come up time and time again, especially in the West, where we have our sort of, I think it hope you don't take offense to this, but your generation, because there is a bit of a generational gap between us, which I think it will be interesting in terms of reflecting and sharing thoughts and ideas. But for your generation,
what generation do you fall in?
well, I'm 1995 on, I saw, well, and it's not necessarily by the time as such, but I'd say, I don't know what the technical, what is it,
You're Gen Z.
I, I don't like to think so, man. Like I look at them and I think, yeah, I'm not that far along yet. But what would you be classed as a millennial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a millennial. I think I'm probably just, so your generation X or Y.
No. Gen X were before millennials.
Okay, yeah, so your generation Y. So I
Yeah.
must be a Z
Yeah.
then.
You're the Zoomer.
Shit, man. Dropping truth bombs already, man. Like I wasn't prepared for this.
No. I mean,
So,
obviously, what you've touched upon there, like, you've got to put things into context. And, a lot of people think millennials are entitled, they're this and that and the other, and they're soft and all of that. But, there is an element of truth to that. But that comes down to environment and circumstances. Obviously,
yeah,
boomers, they came out, just after the world wars. And times are tough for them, times are tough for them, even for Gen Xers to an extent. Millennials were probably the first generation. I'm talking about first world countries here. Obviously, it's different depending on where you are in the world, but first world countries like the US and the UK, etc. Millennials were the first generation where they didn't really have any problems. Like, obviously, everyone's got stresses and worries and whatnot, but there was no, threat of nuclear war or wild scale famine and whatnot, and poverty. Like, obviously people might not be rich, but and people might be poor, but being poor in the UK and the US is significantly different from poverty in a third world country. So and millennials were the first generation that witnessed the change into the technological age. So obviously back in the day, you like my father's generation, the boomers, they just got on with work, whether it was in the factory, whether it was taxi, whether it was a profession, it didn't matter, whatever it was. There was no thinking of, what's the purpose of life, what's the, the meaning of it all is, we need to survive, we need to go to work, we need to do this, end of story. I'm going to raise my family, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to raise my family, and that's it. Because we millennials didn't have this, existential threat, it wasn't about survival anymore. And obviously we had a lot more advantages. Obviously the education system was different now, a lot more people were educated. And obviously with the change, so obviously we were the last generation to witness life before social media and the internet. And we were the only one to obviously have both sides of the thing. After us, I think obviously Zoomers, you guys don't know what life was like before the internet age. And the internet age basically brought change and a lot more opportunities. It changed a lot of things. So when I talk about me not enjoying the legal field and not enjoying my career as a lawyer, boomers might have not enjoyed theirs, but because they had no other choices, they never really had to think about it. It was, this is life, this is what life is, we've just got to get on with it. But our generation and now the generation now is, if you don't enjoy your job, if you don't enjoy your career, you genuinely have many different choices. It doesn't have to be that way. You can make those changes. And especially with online businesses, it's not a fad anymore. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you were doing something online, people met you with suspicion, like, what the hell are you talking about? That can't work, but today it's more accepted, it's more the norm. And because of that, you genuinely have a different path if you're willing to work for it. And starting a business isn't easy. Obviously these days we talk about just start a business and you'll be okay. It's not as easy as they make out. However, at the same time, it's not as difficult as it used to be. Again, going back to the pre-internet age, if you wanted to start a business, you'd be looking at either buying a property or renting it out. That costs a lot of money. You kit it out, you do the branding and all sort. It would literally cost you a lot of money to get started. Today, to get started, you could start a business with literally zero money whatsoever. And that wasn't possible for previous generations. So, there's a massive shift, cultural, societal shift because of social media. Yes, it brings a lot of problems, but with it brings a lot of opportunities. And so the biggest issues really isn't opportunity, which it used to be back in the day for the boomers and so on. The biggest issue today is mind and mentality, and this is why you have so many mindset coaches and whatnot, because people need help gaining clarity because of all the choices that they have, rather than, you know, not having any choice and just doing what's in front of you.
Yeah. No, thank you for going into that a bit. I mean, I can see already that we could probably spend hours talking, because every time we open up even a little side note, it has the opportunity to, you know, go into something a lot deeper. You know, these are things that are conversations, I guess, people like you and I are having maybe on a day-to-day basis, or we have a sort of general day-to-day awareness of things like this. It's a guiding sort of light, or this information is proving to be a guide for us in terms of the direction that we're heading in life. But there may be people there who are listening to this now or in the future, who this might not be occurring to them, or they might not think, you know, we could be that you're bursting a bubble by saying some of the things that you're saying, or at least you're opening up an awareness or an opportunity for somebody to become more aware of these things. So again, man, thank you for that. I wanted to actually touch up on how you and I met, and when we met. So I'll give my account of it, and I'd be interested to hear yours, because I've never actually asked you. So in light of what you were obviously talking about in terms of independence, freedom, entrepreneurship, it's going back now to 2019, I believe, when I had become aware of a gentleman called Carl Allen, through a course that I was doing in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, of which he's also somebody who did that. And it was through the people who actually delivered the course. We had that in common, basically, me and Carl. So I'd discovered him. I'd heard something that somebody had mentioned about him, that he buys businesses without spending his own money. And immediately, like, I was just like, what? Like, how is that even possible? And so I ended up buying his course and learning a thing or two about leveraged buyouts, which is what he teaches essentially. And then he ran obviously, as part of his course or program, he had different tiers to his product offering, where there was obviously the course, a self-study course, then there was like a group mentoring program, and then there was like a more sort of concentrated coaching program for selected individuals. So it was September 2019, I believe, in London, where we met at the group sort of mentoring event that they held in person. So we were both a part of that program, and we both had an interest in, obviously, and an intention, I guess, to some extent, into buying businesses. I'm not going to talk about my motivations for wanting to do something like that, because that's a whole nother story in itself. But just to set the scene, so here we are in a hotel in London, in the conference suite or whatever it was, with all these round tables, and there was probably about, I would have thought, if I remember correctly, about good 50, 60 maybe plus people. No, I think probably even more than that. Yeah, about 70, 80, close on to, I wouldn't say 100, but definitely between about 60 and 100 people, I would have thought. Yeah, and we actually happened to find ourselves on the same table, which is I remember seeing you there for the first time, then thinking, looking around the room, scanning to see the type of people, you know, trying to get some context and some demographic. And yeah, I mean, you stood out to me as one of few Asians in the room, and probably I would have thought, again, if I can remember off the top of my head, the only British Asian Muslim. I say British Asian, I'm assuming you were born here, but even if you're not, you were educated here and stuff. So you were born here, right? So yeah, we immediately, so I made out.
I don't think we talked. I don't think we talked that day. I remember seeing you.
Yeah. So I made you out like, okay, this guy's like from a similar background to me. You know, I'm Indian, you're Pakistani, but like in a context like that, it's like that doesn't matter right now. Like, you know, there were some of the Asians there though, just to kind of note. I remember there was some there were some guys from Birmingham, I think. There was a couple of guys, some Sikh lads who were running an agency, Punjabi lads, Pakistani Punjabis, and I remember there was another geezer as well. But as far as the rest of the people in the room was concerned, they were pretty much all white British, bar a few. There was some, you know, from Eastern Europe, a few women, I believe, and there was Corsten, of course, as well, who's African. But yeah, so that was my initial sort of thoughts. I was like, okay, cool. But like you said, we didn't actually even talk much. There was a few brain teasers, icebreakers, exercises that they did as part of hosting the sort of event that day, which kind of allowed us to interact with each other a bit, but we didn't actually talk much at all, if at all. And then, yeah, we kind of, I guess from that point onwards, we sort of went about our lives as normal. Now, I can't even remember when I added you on Facebook or when we even got connected, but that's how we basically kept in touch with each other. It was just from Facebook, I'm assuming through the group that we had. And it's been very like passive interaction since, you know, I've actually been following you just out of curiosity in terms of, you know, I've noticed over the course of the last few years since then. So it's been now coming up to about 2.5 years since that moment that we met. And I've noticed that you've gone through a fair bit. You've talked about like a lot of different things during that time, but the general overview is that I've seen a lot coming from you, where previously there wasn't really much when I first connected with you, whereas there's been a consistency in the last sort of, I would say probably a couple of years, maybe a bit less, where I started to see you becoming more outspoken, talking about things, experimenting, being open about where you're at, what you're up to, and then seeing you get in front of the camera, and then just seeing obviously all these different people that you've started interviewing on your podcast as well. So there was that, okay, like, you know, what's going on here sort of thing. And you know, obviously considering that we had the context of, or the common ground of looking to acquire businesses as well, it was interesting to see how some of that sort of stuff had been developing. And then just to kind of cut the long story short, basically, you know, I started dabbling a little bit in a bit of content myself recently. Some people who will be listening to this now will kind of recall the cold shower videos, which I started doing a few months ago. And that was, again, I'm not going to go into that too much, but off the back of that, you sent me a message randomly one day saying, and I noticed that you'd actually been promoting this program, which you're now running and I'm a part of launching a podcast and your coaching program. And I remember seeing it initially when you put it out, and I thought, he's a geezer. Like, I'm not going to sign up for this and not do something with it. So if I'm going to sign up, I have to be about it, you know. So I held off from contacting you at that time to say I'm interested, because I wanted to make sure that I was going to do it properly. And then I got a message from you one day saying, hey man, how are you? You know, it's been a while. I don't know whether you've noticed, but I'm starting this program up and I think that you'd be a good fit for it. What do you think? Would you be interested? Now, for me, if that happens, like I'm thinking about something and then it reaches out to me in some way in life, I'm just like, yeah, it's done. I'm going to do it now, if that's a sign or whatever you want to call it. And so that was going back now, maybe a couple of months max. And here we are. So what I wanted to highlight of that very briefly is, and you're going to touch up on this when you talk about the podcast and podcasting in general, is you just do not know how what you're doing right now in this present moment is going to fit in with some future moment in your life in terms of connections, opportunities, everything. Just, life is so bizarre in that way, and it's so like vast in terms of how things and people and places and all these things become connected. And I've just highlighted there the journey for me personally, and we're going to obviously listen to what you have to say in your take on it. But look at how, for me, joining a course out of a desire to learn and know myself better back in 2017. I did the first part of that course in 2016, I think, has led to all of these interesting things. And now here we are recording this. So it's unbelievable. And you cannot possibly plan or factor these things in. So yeah, that's me, and that's my take on how we met and how we got connected, and what I think about that. But why don't you tell us your take?
100%. Like, you know, I want to try and say this in a way which brings value to the audience. So yeah, that course by Carl, and like, you know, I would say that's probably one of the best, if not the best, courses that I have taken, simply because of the amount of information that you get in it, and then the legitimate way that it can basically change your life. So at that time, you know, this was obviously September 2019. I initially signed up with Carl and back in 2018. And then, you know, that was the second meeting of that. You know, the first one was in Manchester. You weren't in that one. That was a smaller one. And then obviously he got bigger and bigger. So he's holding events now around the world, mainly in America and the UK. So that was the first London one. So I went down to that one. I remember seeing you, obviously, simply because you were the only other Asian lad. You did mention there was the other two, but we didn't talk at that meeting. But then, yeah, I don't know how we somehow connected from Facebook, where they probably would have been from that group. Would have been, you know, I saw you at that place or whatnot. And we didn't talk. Now, this is the thing. This is what I want to bring to people's attention here. We connected on Facebook, but even on Facebook, we still didn't talk. We didn't message each other. We didn't do anything. Basically, that was me going through my own personal self-development journey. So just for context, like, you know, I used to be really shy. Still, I'm an introvert. I used to have really bad social anxiety to the point where I had a real bad fear of speaking. And, you know, this wasn't, you know, obviously everyone's got fear of speaking to some extent, but I was really bad to the point where even, you know, as a teenager, if I got ill or if I needed to make an appointment, I just wouldn't be able to do it. I'd have my phone in the hand, or I'd script out my phone call first. And then I'd think about all the ways that it could possibly go wrong. I'd panic, this and that and whatnot. You know, I'd have racing heartbeat, sweaty fingers and whatnot. And by the end of it, I just wouldn't make the phone call, because that's how much I hated and had a fear of speaking. So, and even when, you know, when people think that, you know, you're a lawyer, that means automatically that you're going to be a fantastic, confident person and a great speaker. Well, it's not the case. So with law, obviously there's two different types of lawyers. There's solicitor and there's a barrister. And the difference is barristers they're more likely to go into court and stand up and speak and make the case in front of a judge. Solicitors can do that, but for the most part, they do more of the paperwork and it's more office type. And when I was making this decision to become either a solicitor or a barrister, my initial thought is I'm going to become a barrister, because that was more prestigious. It was more, you know, the higher end. But the only reason that I didn't was because I thought I'm going to have to speak a lot and I don't want to do that. So in running away from speaking, I decided to become a solicitor. And what I've come to realize, obviously, I've had these opportunities at various points in life. So that wasn't me, you know, at the time I thought it was just me becoming a lawyer was a random act because I didn't know what else to do. But it was there because that was the first, you know, I'd say it's from God. So basically my motto in life is you've got two aspects. Your first aspect is to maximize your natural talents, interests, passions. And the second aspect, which you add on to that, is to overcome your biggest fears, challenges, and obstacles. So that was the first opportunity for me to overcome one of my biggest fears and challenges, which was the fear of speaking. At the time, I ran away from it. And you know, about several opportunities like that to overcome this fear of speaking, but I've always chosen to run away from it and not deal with it. So around about 2019, obviously I've had enough of this legal career. I'm starting to look into business and entrepreneurship. And one thing you're going to find is, you know, if you want to start your own business, if you want to do your own thing, it's not a place for people who are, you know, so shy that they can't speak or they don't want to speak. You know, business it's a people thing. You have to speak to people. You have to develop relationships. You're going to have to talk. So it's something that you have to get over. And obviously with the internet and with content marketing, putting out videos is going to do a lot more for you than just putting out content. So I decided to take up this challenge where I'm going to start putting out videos to get over this fear of speaking, and secondly, to make it something that will allow for opportunities to come my way. So
wasn't it actually, sorry to interrupt you there, man, wasn't it actually Carl was running some sort of like what was it called, something hard?
75 hard, yeah. I'm going to come up with that. Yeah,
go on.
So,
Yeah, no.
So what happened? So basically, at the time I took Carl's course, I'd taken so many different courses on online business and on copywriting, Facebook advertising, this, and I even tried all of these things. And then, like you, I came across this, how to buy a business without putting your money down. Like, what?
Yeah.
Because I came across this concept with, with property. So I went on a Robert Kiyosaki seminar, prior to this, where they teach you how to basically buy businesses without using your own money, etc. Sure. But this just sounded more exciting because it was business, and
that's buying houses. Buying houses.
Yeah, that was buying houses. Yeah. And I took this course, but again, I had the same problem because if you want to take this forward, it's a relationship building enterprise. You've got to speak to people. You've got to get out there. You've got to make moves. Build your network, kind of thing. And I had this fear, so I started making videos online, obviously to help me with this fear of speaking. And I started going to these networking events. So that networking event with Carl was one of the networking events I went to. I went to another one where Jordan Belfort came down, the Wolf of Wall Street. Initially, it was just to get out of my comfort zone. Going to networking events, I hated it, but I used to go with friends. And the problem with that was, even though I went with a friend, I'd spend the evening speaking to my friend rather than mingling with other people. So then I made this conscious decision of, I'm going to go to networking events and go alone, because then I'm going to have to speak to people. So that was another element of me trying to get over this fear of speaking to people and social anxiety and whatnot. And then, I went to Carl's course. And then after that, obviously I was in Carl's group anyway. So, we were doing this weekly kind of brainstorming and weekly group calls and whatnot. And then he started doing 75 hard. So initially I heard from 75 hard from another person that I was subscribed to, and at the time I thought, what the hell is this? It just sounds silly. It sounds silly. I'm not going to do it. But then Carl started doing it, and then I went on one of these calls where he specifically was talking about this thing called 75 hard. I went on that call and I thought, you know what, suck it, I'm going to do this as well. And it was one of the best, if not the best thing I did. I mean, I say this, I said that about Carl's course, but this, for those that don't know what 75 hard is, this is a mental toughness, mental discipline program done by somebody called Andy Frisella. And it's literally where for 75 days, you've got to do these set tasks without fail every single day. And if you one day you miss one of these things, you've got to start the whole program again. Basically, there's no compromise. And the set tasks were 2 exercises every day, but one had to be outdoor. It was drinking 4 liters of water every day. It was reading at least 10 pages of a book every day. And I've forgotten what the rest. And basically picking a diet of your choice. So as long as it could be any diet of your choice, as long as it improves you. So doing one of these things is difficult as it is. Doing all 5 or 6 of them at the same time is very difficult. And then to do it for 75 days straight. Obviously, a lot of people do the program and they fail. I did it the first time around, which at the time I thought, you're brilliant, amazing. But now I think, that's probably gone against me because I've tried to replicate it a few times and I've not been able to do it. And, doing something, failing and then doing it again builds resilience. Whereas when you just do something and you hit success the first time, yes, you do build obviously skills and you build certain things, but it hits different because when you can't do it again, then the hit to your self-esteem, like what the hell, like
it undermines you, doesn't it? It undermines you because you've built yourself up. Whereas when you sort of like break down, it's like a gradual process. But when you start there and then I get it.
But at the time it was by far like the transformation was real. Like this isn't a physical transformation thing, it's a mental thing. But obviously there was physical transformation that was visible, but the self-esteem, the confidence, like I was walking around like a completely different man by day 75. Now I carried on until day 19. My plan was to carry on to 100 days, but then lockdown happened and then, the gyms closed down. But basically for 90 days, I went to the gym every day. I was going for walks every day. I was drinking water every day. I was reading books every day. And basically, there was a massive transformation.
And that's why I highlighted that. I didn't actually remember that at all until we just started talking now. And I remembered you guys, because I remember Carl sharing some of his, but that's when I started to actually take notice, I think, of you on social media.
Yeah, so this goes back to what you were saying earlier. So the only other thing that I did different for 75 Hard, I gave a daily update every single day.
Yes. Okay, so that's not part of the program then.
That's not part of the program. Part of the program is you take a daily progress picture.
Right.
So you've got to take a picture, but that's for yourself.
Yes.
What I chose to do was to put that picture online, and then I used to give an update every day. And I used to add some of the, key takeaways and just drop some wisdom and whatever came to my mind. And it started off slow. Like a lot of people, obviously the first one, everybody pays attention to the first one because it's like, what's this guy doing? What's this all about?
Yeah, I'm not seeing his face for about 10 years.
Yeah. And then after the first few, it stops. Then when you start to get to about day 30, day 40, like everyone's like, hang on, this guy's still doing it. This guy's still doing it. And then when you get towards the end, like everybody's rooting you on, cheering you on. And then when you do it, like you get all of these massive congratulations and whatnot. But the point I'm trying to make from this is not just 75 ad, but before 75 ad, as part of this personal development journey, I was posting online. So there was written posts and then there was the videos, and then I started the YouTube channel. And then the podcast came later on from that. But the point is, by making posts every day on social media, most of these posts went unnoticed. There was hardly any engagement. There was hardly any likes or whatnot. But people like you were still seeing them.
Yes.
And by seeing these posts, right, I became familiar to you without directly talking to you. So the point that I was trying to make is, even though we were connected, even though we never spoke directly, by seeing me every single day, you became familiar with me. And this is just another way for other people. So this is why you want to post every day, even if you're not getting any engagement. People are still seeing you. People are still seeing you, and they're getting to know you, they're getting to like you, and they're getting to trust you. So when obviously it's been 2 years now, so when I approached you about this program that I'm doing now, had I not been posting every day, and this was just a random cold email and cold message, you'd be like, who's this guy? You probably wouldn't even responded. But because you've seen me every day, you go, oh, look, it's that guy who's I've been seeing every day, because you feel like you know me already before we even thought. And that just makes it easier to get a yes, or to get a positive response. And that's the whole point of marketing online and putting posts online. Even though everybody thinks that you've got to have hundreds of thousands and thousands of followers and hundreds of likes and whatnot. That's not the case. You can make progress by just being consistent. And I say consistent, but last few weeks I haven't really been consistent. So social media is another grind. But it's a grind that if you post consistently and you post daily, what you can do is you can get lots of people to know you, like you, and trust you without speaking to them on a one-on-one basis. And then when you want to launch a program, you're more likely to get a positive response rather than out of the blue saying, I'm going to start something, and you're not going to get any or not much response at all.
It's leverage, isn't it? Social media is a platform, where previously, and this is the value. I mean, I know that I hear a lot of people these days talk about how bad social media is and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, it's like a screwdriver. It's just a tool. And if you use it in the right way, it's very handy. It's very useful. It's very powerful, and it's going to save you a lot of time, and you can leverage your effort. Whereas if you don't know how to use it, or you use it in the wrong way, like poke somebody's eye, then it's going to be very harmful and very damaging. Or even if you know how to use it, and even if you're aware of the dangers, which I am, you still fall prey to it. I still fall prey to it now, which is why I'm not posting that much now, because once you get sucked in, right, you get sucked in, and it does. Obviously, there's studies to prove this now, that this stuff affects the chemicals in your brain. It's addictive. The whole thing, the way it's arranged, is deliberately designed to hook you in, to keep you hooked in. So that's the consumption side. That's the consumption side, isn't it?
Now,
obviously, we're talking primarily at the
production.
moment about
Yeah.
the production side of things, which obviously, like, and I'm sure again, it's a side note which we can go into deeper, as I'm sure, even if we don't on this call, but people will be able to understand from your podcast, which we'll talk about later on, because it's one of the subjects that you do talk about. And if not, then even just following you on social media, people will get to see, you know, your thoughts and feelings on that. So yeah, like there was one thing I was gonna ask you, and it's gonna sound stupid because the moment kind of passed, but I did want to ask you, what did you think? What did you think of me when you met me? Do you remember? Was it memorable? Did you think anything when you saw me or you met me or I introduced myself? Because we all had to introduce ourselves in that room. I remember specifically everybody had to say a little piece about who they were, and I was there. You know, how old was I at the time? I'd say I was 24, I think, 24, 25. And I went dressed in my suit, you know, and I wouldn't say I was feeling myself, but I wanted to put my best foot forward because I didn't know who I was going to meet there.
Yeah.
So I remember trying to, like, because I come from quite a strong sales background where, you know, where you mentioned that you had the issue of public speaking, or you were a bit anxious, or you were a bit shy. I was probably a bit on the opposite side of things, where I wasn't afraid to kind of put myself out there because of my experiences. So do you remember anything from that day, in terms of, do you remember me? Was there anything memorable about me? Did anything stand out?
No, other than what I mentioned earlier, so like,
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that we sat on the same table. I don't remember us sitting on the same table. I remember seeing you on a couple of tables ahead.
Yeah.
Because I was right at the back. Like
Yeah.
because I traveled from like 4 or 5 hours away,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I got there quite late
Late.
compared to everybody else. So
I remember we were initially sat on different tables, but then there was a part where we did an
oh, it might have
exercise
been,
on
yeah, yeah,
crunching
yeah,
numbers. And
yeah. Okay.
I tell you, the moment I remember specifically was there was another guy there. I'm not going to say his name because I'm still connected with him, but he was a bit like, let's just say he was quite zealous. Like he was quite eccentric, and you know, as a sort of inside joke between Asians, we have a bit of a laugh, I guess, sometimes, right? It's this kind of understanding we have between each other. They're like, come on, man, stop showing yourself up in front of everyone, kind of thing. Like, you know, like, why are you being the typical, like, cheesy Asian guy? Like, you know, and he was proper all over it. He was all over it. I don't know what it was we were doing. We were doing some exercise, crunching numbers on looking at deals and how to understand whether or not a deal is going to be worth pursuing from a numbers perspective. And we were doing it as a group on the table, and this guy was like, yeah, he was just all over it. And I remember, like, there was a point at which yours and my eyes met, and we kind of laughed, almost like looking at each other like, this guy, man, like, it's like you understand and I understand, but like everybody else is probably just whatever, but you and I were laughing. So that's what I remember. But yeah, no, sorry, carry on, man. You were saying so.
Yeah. That, now that you mentioned it, that actually slipped my mind, but I do now recall that happening a little bit. But yeah, other than that, like, you know, like I mentioned earlier, it was, you know, these kind of business events. Like I've been to a few of them now, and you don't see many Asian people, and you see even less young Asian people. So I think you might have been the youngest or one of the youngest in the room. So
Yeah.
you know, obviously you stood out because one, you're Asian, and secondly, you're probably the only one that was, because even I'm still, you know, one of the youngest in the room as well. And I'm in my mid-30s now. So, you know, even I'm young. So to see somebody in their 20s, obviously you're going to stand out because, you know, you're another Asian male and you're very young. But obviously, because we didn't really connect, so, you know, there's not really much more to add, because, you know, we didn't connect at that event.
No, I thought you might have said someone like, I saw you, and I was thinking, who's this flipping
Joker? No,
who's this
no.
clown?
No, like
Or
that.
someone, I don't know. It's funny sometimes, isn't it? Like, you know, you
I
never
think
know what people
basically, I
remember.
think the only thing I remember at the when you introduce yourself, I think you were saying something like, "I've got a background in marketing, and I'm here to network with wiser people than myself to help me on this journey." I thought, nobody's coming to you, mate. Not like that. You know, you basically pitched yourself without really pitching yourself. So, you know, you when you're the youngest and the most experienced in the team, and essentially you're looking for a mentor kind of thing. You're looking for more experienced partners. You know, nobody's going to take you up on that unless you bring something to the table. So
Interesting.
and you know, for all the young people out there, you know, if you're going to start some, especially with this business buying journey, like it's exciting, but it is traditionally, you know, for it's mostly a lot older people now. You can get involved with them, but you need to bring something to the table.
Yes.
Now, one of the way to do that is with online marketing. Obviously, the younger generation, they know more about social media marketing and online marketing, whereas these older guys, they know about it, but you know, they don't really like doing it. So
No.
you know, not just in a business buying context, but with any field, like find out what the person is doing, you know, the person that you want to connect to, the person that you want to mentor you, to help you, whatnot, find out what they're doing, and then find out how you can help them. So you know, for example, taking the business buying aspect, this is a room full of people, of older people that are looking to buy businesses. Well, how can you help them? Well, say to them, I've got a social media background, I can help you generate leads, I can help you generate you know, find businesses, off market deals, which can help you on your journey. In exchange, are you willing to, you know, mentor me, or can we partner up? That way, now you're going to get a lot more yes as well. If you just put your hand on and say, I've got a background in marketing, I'm looking for help, you know, it's a different proposition. So that's part and parcel of obviously building not only self-esteem and confidence, but communication skills, which is what I'm trying to do with this new platform. Because, you know, you could be confident but not have a lot of self-esteem. And, you know, people think self-esteem and confidence is the same thing. It's not. It's you know, these are all interlinked. They're all linked, but they are different aspects. So you'll have a lot of people who are confident, they're outspoken, but they've got very little self-esteem. And this is especially true on social media, where you see all these posts and people are putting these filtered photographs on with videos and whatnot. But then as soon as they hit a little bit of criticism, they capitulate. Their self-esteem is shot, their self-worth is shot. And the reason why is because they're putting all of these what seems to be like confident posts online, but really they've got this self-esteem issue, and they're looking for validation online. So they're looking for the likes, they're looking for the comments, they're looking for the validation. And if they don't get it, because they don't have self-esteem, they capitulate. So you need to have the self-esteem as well as the confidence. Now, there's people that have self-esteem and they might be confident, but they absolutely suck at communicating. Which again, basically, you're shooting yourself in the foot by not developing. You could be as confident as you like, you could have so much self-esteem, but if you don't know how to communicate with people, it's not going to get you far in life, not just in a business context, but in life. So, this is why I call it the perfect trifecta: build self-esteem, build confidence, but also build communication skills. And a podcast is a fantastic way to do that, because what we're doing now, we're communicating, we're building our communication skills, and by doing this on a consistent basis, we're going to develop confidence automatically, and we're going to develop the self-esteem automatically as well. And that was what my podcast was about. So obviously I was going through this self-improvement journey, and I thought, well, the next logical step is to start a podcast to basically take forward this fear of speaking. So right now I'm on this podcast, I'm talking a lot. Like, this wasn't possible for me a while ago. So I started this podcast and I called it the Minotaur's Maze. And the whole premise behind it was, it was based on the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur, which this is a story that I heard when I was in primary school. It stuck with me ever since. And basically, it was, this Greek hero called, there was this Minotaur, half bull, half man beast in the middle of a labyrinth. And then, 7 boys and girls were offered as a sacrifice, and he'd kill them, devour them, whatnot. And then one day Theseus decides that this is an injustice. He wants to do something about it. And he's going to go inside the maze and beat this Minotaur. Now, before he goes into the maze, Princess Ariadne gives him a sword and a piece of string, and the sword to go and fight the Minotaur, strings so he doesn't get lost in the maze, so he can come out. And obviously he goes into the Minotaur, he beats the Minotaur, he goes into the maze, he beats the Minotaur, he comes out, and then he goes home. But before he goes home, he forgets to change the sail of his boat, because before he left, his father said, don't go, but if you're going to go, change the sail from black to white, so I know you're alive. If the sail is black, I know you'll be dead. So he forgets to change his sail, so his sail remains black. His father, looking over the shore, sees the black sail, assumes Theseus is dead, and he kills himself. Now, that's a Greek myth. It's a story. It's a great story, but for my podcast, I'm using it as a symbolic representation. So the Minotaur, that isn't a beast. The Minotaur is your fears, your challenges, your obstacles in life. And the maze, that's life. Obviously, you've got an internal maze, which is your mind, which is a complicated maze in itself. And life is a complicated process. There is no straight path. It's all a maze in and out. And Theseus is you. That's the potential hero within you. You either face the Minotaur and become a hero in your life, or you run away from the Minotaur and you become one of the sacrificial boys and girls where you just offer it as a sacrifice and you amount to nothing. Princess Ariadne, that's symbolic of the people that will help you on your journey. When you start to go on this journey of self-improvement, or, when you're going to tackle your fears and obstacles, there will be people there to help you. It's for you to use those people to help you. The sword and the string, that's the tools and the strategies that you're going to use in life to help you overcome your fears and develop, the life that you want. And then the father is symbolic on two different aspects. The first aspect is when you start your own journey, whether it's starting a business or doing something different, your parents, your family, your friends, they're all going to say the same thing. Don't do it. It's risky. You're going to fail. Forget about it. And that's just part and part, especially in the world of business and entrepreneurship. And that is something you're going to have to deal with, because people are always going to say, don't do it, you can't do it, and whatnot. And it's not always malicious. Like, obviously there are people who are envious out there and they want to stop you because of jealousy. But others are doing it out of love. Like your parents, they don't want to see you fail or hurt and take risks. And others are doing it out of their own insecurities, because when they say you can't do it, what they mean is they can't do it. And they're projecting their insecurities on you. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is, even in your victory, you still got to take care of your responsibilities. So you can't be victorious and all of a sudden go out and party and that's it. You still have to take care of your responsibilities, because if you don't, you'll lose sight of what's important, and then you'll go down this negative spiral path where you were victorious and now you've lost it all because you didn't take care of your responsibilities. And that's what Theseus did. He forgot to take care of his responsibility of changing the sail. And what happened? Well, his father committed suicide because of it. So, your triumph could very quickly become your tragedy if you don't take care of your responsibility. So, in a nutshell, that's what my podcast was about. It was about overcoming your fears, your challenges, and your obstacles, becoming the best version of yourself, so that you can become a hero of your own life and basically live the life that you want to live. And it wasn't just me bringing on other people. It was me basically showcasing, this is the journey that I've gone on. My Minotaur was this fear of speaking, of having social anxiety, of not wanting to be out there. This is what I've done to overcome the Minotaur, and I'm still on that journey. And it's just a platform that I want to use to help other people do the same thing, because in life you can either run from your fears and challenges, or you can take them on. If you run from them, you're not going to amount to much. Like, you're just going to have an ordinary existence. You're going to pass by and nothing's going to happen. Whereas one of my philosophies in life is these challenges and these hardships are there because God wants you to go through these to become the better version of yourself. So that's the whole premise behind the podcast. And now, obviously, I'm trying to help people do the same by building self-esteem, confidence, and communication, as well as obviously with the business buying side, where we want to help people, build real wealth and get out of the miserable situation. Like I was miserable in my job. I was making, I was probably making good money compared to most people. But still I was miserable, and there's so many people that are miserable in their 9-to-5 jobs, and they're looking for a way out, but they've got to go through this personal development journey, which is hard. Like I've been on this for years now, and I still wouldn't say I've made it. I'm nowhere near making it. And this is the journey that people are not willing to go through, or when they start to go through it, they're not willing to see it through because it's hard. It's very difficult. But when you see all of this stuff online, you think, well, this person's doing it, that person's doing it, it must be easy. That's not the case. Like, this is a difficult journey, and it's a difficult journey because you have to deal with your Minotaur, which is different to my Minotaur, which is different to other people's Minotaur. So you have to deal with your hardships, your insecurities, your difficulties, and they're difficult for you, but they might not be difficult to somebody else. So you've got to look at it from a subjective point of view, and then carry on your own journey, because comparing yourself to other people is just not going to work.
Sure. Wow. You've dropped some bombs there. Zulfi. And this is what I love about this, and I'm sure this is a fantastic advocator, an indirect or a passive advocator of podcasts is once you start rolling, you don't know like what's gonna come out. Just the natural flow. And I have a saying of my own, which is basically process over everything. And I don't know whether I might have stolen that from somewhere, but I can't think off the top of my head. But it is literally just that it's the journey that's more important than the destination, and what you will gain from the journey. And this is a philosophy I guess I've applied to my own life. What you gain from the journey, for starters, there's no way that you will be able to plan what you're going to get from it. Or you can try having a focus in the short term or have a goal, and we live in a very goal driven society. But what we're finding now is actually there's a huge appreciation for process now, which is starting to shine through, where people are becoming more and more transparent, more open, and they are willing to actually talk about the stuff that you don't see, and they're championing that, as opposed to the end result, which is the usual stuff that we see, that we're enticed by, that we get seduced by in the immediate term and the short term, which is the material stuff, or the pretty face, or the white teeth, or the blah blah blah, or, all of that stuff basically. And this is what we are advocating here essentially, is process over everything. Like everything that we've talked about thus far in this conversation, and it's we've been rolling now for probably about an hour or so. I'm sure we could go on for so long, so we're probably going to have to do a few more of these so if you just to tap into each specific subject. But on the subject of process, and we're talking about podcasts as a specific way to implement your sort of awareness of a process, and your observing your own self-development through that. See, like when you reached out to me, you kind of, I remember you telling me about a podcast and why it's a great avenue to go down at the moment in terms of an opportunity, but what the benefits are. And I remember you telling me about networking, jobs, businesses, partnerships, etc., but also monetizing the podcast itself. Now, you'll recall that I said to you quite specifically, quite clearly at that point, I'm not at this moment interested in trying to monetize or gain sponsorships or anything like that. Of course, it'll be something that I'll think about in the future, but right now this is all about process. And it's like you said, like what you're going to gain from it in terms of self-confidence, self-esteem, and communication is huge. Just that trifecta is massive. And I know that because most people will recall seeing the cold shower videos, which they literally just started on a whim. I got up one day and I was thinking, let's go for a shower. And then I was like, you know what, I have a coach, or I've come to the end of my journey pretty much with him, but this was something which I was kind of talking about with him, about purpose, mission, vision, and values. And he's like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you enjoy doing? And I was like, I was thinking about it one day, and it was funny. The thought came to me in the shower. I don't know whether you've heard of a guy called Patrick Bet David, PBD, or Valuetainment is his channel on YouTube. He comes out with some great content, and he does these interviews. Everybody knows Piers Morgan, right? Piers Morgan used to do that, an interview with, or an evening with Piers Morgan's show. Like, he used to come on TV. I remember he used to interview all these celebrities, right? And then like talking to them and understanding deeper insight into their stories, their processes, and everything. It was just like, wow. Now that is something that I'm naturally just so curious about. I love meeting people. I love stories. I love understanding process. I love what makes you different from the next guy. We all live the same 24 hours in a day, but what's different about your story to his? And that kind of touches up on everybody's Minotaurs are different. So I was thinking to myself that day, you know what? I could actually do this for free. Like, just sit down and have a chat with a person, like, and just dig deeper into them, because I'm curious about people. I genuinely care. Like, I'm interested in people. Most people nowadays don't have the time of day, but that's something that I recognize is something I genuinely care about. And so I thought, I'm just going to start getting comfortable in front of the camera as a precursor to starting to have these conversations and put this energy out there into the ether, into the universe, into my network. I thought, instead of worrying about planning it out, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I've put off this sort of thing for quite a few years, I thought, I'm just going to switch the phone camera on and record. I don't know what I'm going to say and I don't care. I'm confident enough to know I'll be able to do it, but it's rinse, repeat. It's, like I said, it's process over everything. It's about doing it consistently enough to like see something from it. So kind of like, again, the 75 hard thing. So I went for a shower one day. I looked at the tap and I was like, oh, you know what? Let's do something different today. Let's go cold. And I've heard about cold showers and why they are beneficial and what's so good about them. But we all know once that cold water touches you, you just, like you're gunners, it's game over, forget it. But I thought, I know if I set myself something like that, I'll do it. So I thought, all right, let's do it. And then I thought, when I get out of the shower, I'm just going to switch the camera on and talk about my experience. I'm going to do it for 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, 10 days. I plan to do it for a month, I think, initially. And I got to the end of like 9 or 10 days or something. And it was just like, there's not much more I can say about a cold shower. But it was all of the other stuff that came out talking on the camera. It was never about a cold shower. And again, like, that stuff now is gone, like whatever, man, whatever a cold shower is and was. People are actually messaging me like, wow, I'm going to try this, or wow, this is really interesting, or it's really good to see how you've changed, or you changed in front of the camera over the course of like the last week. Or when I stopped posting videos every day, it was like, have you stopped doing this? But obviously they didn't know what's going on in the background. And what process has been happening in the meantime with this whole podcasting. But again, it just goes to show that was 9 days of posting videos, but that put me in front of you. Yep. You've seen me and know me in terms of like, but you're not going to have seen much from me on social media because I don't share much of my personal life on there. So you obviously thought like, oh, this guy's in front of the camera. And again, you can tell me about what you thought in that sense and why you approached me. But it's created an opportunity, and now here we are. So process over everything. Like, the goal is good, it's important, and you need a goal sometimes. If you don't have something enough to push you towards something, if you're not got that thing that's pulling you, towards it, you're probably not going to see the process through. So that incentive, that carrot, in a way, I guess you could say, is so important in that too. But the journey that you're going to go on to get to that is where the real McCoy is, the real magic happens.
Yeah, 100%. Now, there's a couple of things I'll add to that. So basically, when I told you earlier in this conversation about my career as a lawyer, right? Most of us, in fact, all of us in this, especially the first world countries, that process, what you're talking about right now, it wasn't a process we chose. Okay. Obviously, there were elements, there were times of, where we had to choose something. But the point is, from a very young age, this was drilled into us that you need to go to school, you need to go to college, you need to get a degree, you need to become a professional, etc. So I'm going to specifically talk about the legal journey. So university degree, getting a law degree means nothing, right? That's just the first step.
Yeah.
After that, obviously you've got to make a choice whether you want to become a solicitor or a barrister. But after university, you've then got to go to law school.
Yeah.
So that's a 1 year thing, law school. And then even after that, doesn't mean anything because you're still not a lawyer.
Yeah.
After that, I think it might have changed now, but back in my day, you then had to get what's called a training contract.
Sure.
And these were very, very difficult to get. These are basically contracts that you get with a law firm where they train you to become a solicitor. So the fastest journey is you get your law degree, 3 years. You then get go to law school for 1 year, and then you get your 2-year training contract, and then you're ready to become a lawyer.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't happen for most people. In fact, very few people actually get it that way. Most people go to university, not all of them finish and get the degree. But out of all the people that get the degree, most of them don't go on to go to law school, or they can't afford to go to law school or whatnot. And even those that do go to law school, a lot of people will go through that point and still they will never get a training contract. So they'll never become a qualified lawyer. But so my personal journey was, I left university and I had no intention of becoming a lawyer. I only left university and I thought, you know what, I didn't really think of anything, I wasn't thinking I'm going to become a lawyer or whatnot. I just happened to get a job straight away with an accident management company. So I went to
accident management,
accident management company, right? So I went to that job and I hated it. That was the worst year of my life. I absolutely hated it. And it was so bad. I don't want to go. That's a whole topic in and of itself. You could
some trauma there, G.
Traumas there, yeah. So basically, that job was so bad. The only reason I went back to law school was, you know what? If this is what employment is like, I'd rather be a student again. And that's why I went back to law school. Not because I wanted to become a lawyer, not because I wanted to law school, but because I was running away from employment. Right. So then after that year, I went back to do law school. And then I finished law school. And then it took me 6 months to land a job. Right. And then I got a job. It was in a city law firm. And my first salary was 13 grand. Okay. So I've 3 years, I've got a degree. I've got 1 year's experience under me in working. Obviously, I've done part-time jobs previously, but this was the first full year of working full-time. And then I've got a law school, qualification. And the first job took me 6 months to get, and I'm only on 13 grand. But the point was, when I was in university, it was like, I just need to finish university. I just finished university. Even though I'm miserable, I just need to finish university. I'll be okay. Once I finished university, it was okay. I've got this job. I'll just see this job out. I'll start law school. It'll be okay. Then I started law school. I'll just finish law school. Then it'll be okay. After law school, you know what? I've got this anxiety. Obviously, I've got this anxiety throughout this period, and I'm trying to placate it by saying, if I get to this stage, then it'll be okay. If I get to this stage, it'll be okay. So now I'm thinking, you know what? If I just get a job, it'll be okay. If I just get a job, it'll be okay. And then I got the job, right? And then I was still anxious. I was still miserable, and it took me less than 2 years, or about 2 years. And I quit that job because I hated it. And then I started to find something else in a different field, but I couldn't find it. Then I went back to another law firm. And then with that law firm, that's where I got the training contract. I qualified. And, then I became a lawyer. And, I put a post about this on social media a few weeks ago. So I put this post, at the time when I became officially qualified, I was sat in Pakistan with my parents. And I was just refreshing the Law Society page, the SRA page, and then there I saw my name on the roll. Finally came on, my name's there, qualified as a lawyer. Obviously felt good, had a little bit of congratulations with my parents. And got from friends and family, got the congratulations and whatnot. Returned back from holiday, went back to work. I was like, what? Is this it? I'm a qualified lawyer, but nothing's changed. It's exactly the same. I'm still doing the same shitty job. I'm going to the same shitty routine, waking up at a time that I don't want to wake up at, sitting in terrible traffic, speaking to clients which weren't great, doing a job that I didn't really like. In fact, I hated. What's the point? And the point that I'm trying to make with this is, I spoke to so many aspiring lawyers and law students, and they all said the same thing. I just want to qualify. I just want to get a training contract. And I used to say the same thing to all of them every single time. What then? And they were like, every single one gave the same answer. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. All I want to do is get a training contract. All I want to do is qualify. In other words, their end goal was qualification. Right? And we go through this process that we absolutely hate because we think once I qualify, it's going to be okay. But then when you hit qualification, you realize, you know what? Is this it? Was it worth it? I don't think it was. And people don't think about the next step because they've been so indoctrinated. It's been so drilled in that this is the step and this is the goal. And then when you hit the goal, everybody thinks that once I hit that goal, everything's going to be okay and it's all going to be great. But when you hit that goal, you realize, you know what? this ain't it. And the same thing, I've seen this with other people in the entrepreneur field, where they think, if I hit six figures, if I hit 7 figures, everything's going to magically change. They go ahead, hit that target, and they realize, shit, I'm still miserable. And that's because everybody's going through this process where they're not really focusing on the process, they're focusing on the end goal, and they're going through this shitty process, and they're getting through this shitty process thinking, when I hit this goal, when I hit this target, it's going to be worth it and everything's going to be okay. But then they realize that they've hit the target and nothing's changed. And this is why process is important. Now, I would still say having goals and targets is important, but the process is more important, because the process is this is more of a philosophical thing. The process is what's going to put you in a state of mind of presence.
Yes.
Whereas, most people today, we're either worrying about the past. That's why we're anxious. We've got regrets. We're worried about, we're stressed about what happened in the past, or we're worried about what's going to happen in the future. So, we're either living in the past, which is causing us anxiety, or we're living in the future, which is causing anxiety, and we're not living in the present, which is the only thing that's going to give us peace of mind and contentment and feeling happy and joyful. But because we're so focused on, I need to hit this target, I need to hit this target, I need to do this, we're living in stress. Or we're worrying about what happened in the past, or I wish that was different, I wish that didn't happen, yada, yada, yada. Whereas when you focus on the process, and this is what happened with 75 hard as well. And the 75 hard wasn't me, I need to hit the 75-day mark. It was, okay, today I just need to do these tasks and that's it. We'll see what the end result is when we get to it. I'm not really bothered, because I wasn't trying to get to a specific way. I wasn't trying to build muscle. I wasn't trying to do anything. It was literally, I'm just going to do this today and see where I'm at. And that's what was a big part of the transformation, is because I was consistently living every day in a state of presence, because I wasn't working towards anything. I wasn't living in the future. I wasn't living in the past. I was living in the present, in the process. So, the process is important, but there has to be a balance, because, it can't just be about the process, because even in the process, you're going to go through times of difficulty and challenges, and the end result or the target is going to get you through those difficult parts. Everybody today is like, if I just have, I just want to be happy. I just want to do things that make me happy. And that's why they leave their job, or they change their job, or they start a business. But you've still got to bear in mind that even if you start a business, even if you make those changes, you are still going to go through many periods of hardships, of difficulties, of boredom, and you've got to pull yourself through those periods. There's never going to be a case, or there's never going to be any moment in your life where everything is absolutely perfect and it's going to stay that way. Okay, you might have a perfect day, a perfect week, a perfect month, but eventually, just the way life goes, it's going to go the opposite direction. And the whole point of focusing on the process is to develop the grit, the discipline, the mental toughness, so that when things do go sour, you've got it in you to be able to deal with it. Whereas if you're just constantly chasing feel good, I just want to be happy all the time, I don't want any challenges, any difficulties, you're going to be miserable, because when challenge does hit, and it will hit, you haven't developed the necessary skill and the mindset to deal with it. And that's why process is important. But it's not just about the process. You still need to have the end goal, but the process is important, so that you put yourself in a state of presence, and then you develop the skills of mental toughness, of discipline, and self-esteem and confidence to be able to deal with any situation as and when it happens.
Again, man, there's some absolute gems in there. And I'm sure when I review this conversation, I'll be able to sort of cherry pick a lot of these and take little snippets out to kind of share, or to reflect on as well. I am quite conscious of the time, because we are, we've been here for a while, but this is what it's all about. When you get into this zone and you get into this space, there's just so much there. And it's, if anything, for as real-time feedback for you as a, in terms of your coaching and mentoring program with the whole podcast thing, is, it's just further reinforcing how valuable this journey is, and this just doing this podcasting is, I never thought of myself as a guy who's going to be doing something like this. If you'd have asked me 6 months ago, I'd have been like, yeah, maybe, it sounds like a good idea, but can I be asked? I don't know. So the accountability having been there is massive, but also having the support of your knowledge and your experience is really helping. And I think it's, as for a first episode, I think it's gone really well, to be fair. But I'm sure that, the people will be out there to let us know and give us feedback. So I mean, I would really love to keep going, but I think I want to be respectful of your time. And like I said, I think it would be also great to use this as an opportunity to actually open up future conversations. I know that, and I'm just going to put it here for the record so we can reflect on it as well. We can talk about business buying and all that. I'm sure we can spend a whole episode just talking about that. We've touched up very, very briefly, you've spoken about God, and you've spoken about your values in terms of, you've touched up a little bit on spirituality, and that part is playing in your life. And I know, based on some of the things that you explored in your podcast, that you are actually touching up on these subjects as well. So there's a lot there to unpack. You talk about spirituality, you talk about sovereignty, you talk about the occult, and you talk about magic, you talk about all these different things as well, which is very, very fascinating. And what else could we, I don't know, man, there's just so much. We could dedicate a whole episode on you teaching us a sort of snippet of the process of starting a podcast and doing it the right way, because you might do something like this, but having the guidance of doing it the right way from the beginning can actually stand you in much better stead to make it a successful one. But yeah, man, so just to sort of like wrap things up there, have you got any last thoughts, any closing thoughts, anything you want to share with the people who are listening now or in the future?
Yeah, I mean, based on what you're doing, like obviously, you didn't think, or you didn't see yourself ever having your own podcast, but that's the whole point of coming out of your comfort zone. Try things, experiment with things. And this is what I would, say to other people as well, because take me for an example. Like, I'm a fully qualified lawyer. I've got the cars, I've got the house, and all of that, and I'm still miserable. And and what happened after that is I tried so many different things. Now, people are afraid to try things, and it is an ego thing. Like, I'm not going to pretend that it's not, because for me, it was an ego thing as well. The biggest struggle for me over the past 5 years has been more to do with me trying to deal with my ego more than anything else. Because, when you go from being a hotshot lawyer to slinging things on Instagram or drop shipping things, it can feel like a real fall from grace. But, you've got to try things. Like, everybody wants to know what the purpose of life is, or what the purpose of their life is, or they want to find what they're supposed. It's not going to come to you. You can think about it. Like, I would recommend that you think about it. Obviously, I put you through some exercises to help you with that. Do those exercises, think about it, but it's not going to come unless you take action. Now, since I left, or even since, when I was thinking about leaving the corporate world, I tried white labeling, I tried selling women's shoes, I tried copywriting, I tried designing websites, I tried Facebook advertising. Point being, I tried so many things, and it was all an experiment to see, what do I enjoy and what's going to allow me to live the lifestyle that I want to live. And even now, I'm still experimenting there. Even this new program that I'm doing with you, that's part of that experiment. Because what I'm looking for now isn't so much the money, the status, or the accolades. It's, I want to live a specific lifestyle, but I want to do these. I've got 5 things that I want to do every day. Pray in the mosque. I want to pray my 5 times prayers. I want to read the Quran and the translation of the Quran. I want to spend time with my family, with my young kids. I want to go to the gym every day, and I want to read my books, and I want to obviously do spiritual meditation and spiritual stuff. All right. Now, under the old circumstances, when you've got a job, all your time goes into the job, and then you've got to try and fit these things in your day. And I found it didn't work. And then I tried the entrepreneurship, and what I found is I'm even more busy. So entrepreneurship came first, and I'm trying to fit all of these things in, and it didn't work. So what I'm doing now is I'm prioritizing these 5 things. These are the things I'm going to do every day. Now I need to find an income source that can fit in. And that's the shift that I've made. So final thoughts are, if you're not happy with your situation, right? Obviously, everybody tells you to change, have the courage to change, but you just need to take that step and try things. It's not going to come to you tomorrow. It's not going to come to you next week. It's not going to come to you next year. It might take you a few years, but you're not going to find it unless you go out and take those first steps and you try things. Don't think that you've got to start something, you've got to be a success at it straight away. That's not going to happen.
No.
Right? You got to try things, fail. It's not really failing, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to determine what works best for you. So try things, try another thing until you find something that's working for you, where one, you enjoy it. Second, it does improve you, because if you come to a stage where you're not improving anymore, you're going to get bored and it's going to stop. So you enjoy it, it improves you, and you help other people. If you've got those three things, you're good to go. But unless you try different things, you're not going to find the perfect formula. So just go out and try again.
Fantastic. Well, Zulfi, once again, thank you so much for tuning in, joining in today, and sharing a lot of these life lessons, wisdoms, and sharing your story as well. I think it's fantastic for people to really get a feel for somebody else's story, just to give them sometimes just awareness or context of just how vast the world is, and the kind of people out there that are actually quite close to home as well for a lot of us. I wanted to also use this as a platform to share how people can follow you. Where can they find you? Where can they, listen to you, discover your content? And, I'm going to probably put it out when I share this episode anyway, but give us your whatever social media platforms you're on. Where can we find you? And also your coaching program, like how can we find out more if somebody's interested?
Yeah, so basically I'm pretty much active on all the social media platforms under my name, Zulfaqar Faraz, but YouTube is the main one. So I've got a podcast called The Minotaur's Maze, which I put on my YouTube channel, which is under my name, Zulfaqar Faraz. So you can find out on all the typical podcasting platforms, but I'm on YouTube. Other than that, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So you can send me a message on either of those. In terms of the coaching program, so I want to help people develop self-esteem, confidence, and communication skills by starting a podcast the right way, and then use the podcast to actually build relationships, which obviously we didn't touch upon it in this episode, but one of my business partners, David Wolf, is somebody who I interviewed on my second podcast. And basically I want to help people build self-esteem, confidence, and communication skills so that they can then use that as the foundation to then go out and build relationships and build a business and then develop the lifestyle that they want to live. If you just send me a message on any of these platforms, I can share more information about the program. And then the other thing that I'm going to be doing soon, or next week or the week after, is with David, where there's a lot of people out there that want to invest in businesses, but they don't have 100 or 200 grand to invest in a business. So what we're going to do is, people that, they might have 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand. And, we're going to pool together investors like that. And then we're going to help them buy businesses, and then we'll run the businesses for them. So all they're going to be doing is just investing their money, and then they'll get a share in the companies, and then we'll buy the businesses, we'll run them, and then they'll start getting dividends. And then when we sell the business, they'll hopefully get an exit payment, inshallah.
Nice.
So if that sounds interesting, hit me up on any of these platforms, and we can have that conversation.
Yeah, amazing. And obviously, again, to anybody who's tuning in, if you want to, or if you can't find Zulfi for whatever reason, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to put you in touch. But wherever I share this, and if Zulfi shares it on his platforms as well as a guest, then he'll be able to, I'll put your handles out there.
Yeah, and I just want to say, you well done as well. Obviously, this is your first episode, and the first episode is always daunting, and you've done it. Obviously, we had some technical difficulties.
Yeah, man. It's
technical difficulties beforehand, but well done. Hopefully, this is the first step to what I've got no doubt that you will come across so many opportunities. If you stick with this podcast, and obviously you've already experienced it with this conversation. Like I have the same thing even with my podcast now. Like you start a conversation and then it goes off into a different direction, and you're like, wow, where's it gone? And so many different things pop out. Like you will learn so much from these podcasts. It's not just about personal development. That you will learn so much. You will meet interesting people. You will build relationships, And then, I don't want to advertise it that way, but obviously it's a fantastic monetization source as well. But there's just so many different benefits other than the income with the podcast, which is why I'm so passionate about it, and which is why I'm trying to encourage everybody to, get involved with it. And yeah, so well done to you, and hopefully you will use this to do bigger and better things.
Brilliant. Thanks again, Zulfi, and we'll see you again soon, hopefully on the podcast, or yeah, I'm sure we'll be interacting more on social media anyway. Thank you very much, and thanks for tuning in, guys, for the first episode, and many more to come. Take care.